Hi guys, Igor here. Today we write integration / end-to-end test of REST API created in Java 21. Let's start. Why integration / end-to-end? So usually we call integration tests a thing where we test a few components at once, and end-to-end tests where we test our whole system, application, all layers, and really we'll test all layers of our REST API because we will make HTTP requests to ourselves, but generally we have some consumers of our API, so that's really what you would call end-to-end tests. So that's why I call it integration / end-to-end. But anyways, let's see what we need to test. So as I said, we have a RESTful API in Java 21 with Spring Boot 3. We use Postgres, and we will also use it in the tests. And this is our API. It's quite simple. So what we have clients. We can create them, and the model is simple. With the post we return ID. We can update the client. Client status is just enum, as you can see, a few values. And you can get client by ID. So really 3 endpoints. And we also have some error response where we can see errors. There are some validation rules that will go after later, and we have a few commands how we can execute tests, and that we can also execute tests with reports. So let's start, guys. So the app is implemented, so we'll not focus on that, but it is basically a Spring Boot application. Here we have a controller, 3 endpoints. We have a service here which uses repository. Repository uses Spring Data JDBC to write to Postgres. Here's our schema, pretty simple, the same as in the API, client with 4 fields. And in client service, we have a client, and it has a validation that we will test also, and client controller, it accepts client create or update client requests, and we don't have validation right now. We'll map it to client and test that it works. So from other things, we have a config application YAML or YAML, and what is interesting here is that we take params to connect to our database from environment variables or system properties, and we'll write here. We start to write tests right now, guys. In this class, we will have our tests, but I did prepare a few things to make it faster. So we have a base class that I called integration test. We have a Spring profile here. In that particular case, it just means that we'll use this application integration file. And we have more logs here, and we are initializing SQL always, which just means that this file will be executed on the start of the test. So we'll have this table in the database. We don't need to care about that. In the database, we use Testcontainers. So here we have a Postgres container, Postgres 15, and we have a static block. And it means that before all tests, we will start Postgres container, it will run, and then we'll execute our tests, and after all of our tests, it will be shut down. Here we also initialize the system properties so that we can connect to our database. Test HTTP client is HTTP client that will help us with the tests. We'll see this in a while, and JDBC template is a base class. It comes from Spring Data JDBC that allows us to write SQL. And as you can see, after each test, we are truncating the client table so that we have clear state in all tests and each test. And we have also a few assertions for our response class, HTTP response class. We'll go there in a while. Here we have test config. It's not that important. Basically, we set up test HTTP client, and we need to know the port here because we start our application, Spring Boot application, on random port. And in test HTTP client, what it is this a wrapper around HTTP client that is native Java HTTP client, and it will help us with making HTTP requests. There, requests, I don't know, I don't need to explain that. Probably you can check this out in my Git repo. Test HTTP response, just a wrapper around HTTP response from Java. It will also help us to make assertions. And the test objects, here we have our tests data. So let's write some tests, guys. First, we don't have any tests. So let's just do something, anything to make sure that our application starts, we have database and so on. So let's write something like should start the app, for example, and let's say app should start. Okay, let's run it. Right, as you can see that container is starting. Also, if you run this for the first time, it can take a while because we need to download the Postgres 15 container. But we have started the container, the Spring container has started. Here pool is the data connection pool, and it shut down. As you can see, we also truncated the client table. So it means that we have started the app, our test has ended, and we then executed after each statement that we have here. Okay, so let's write first your test, guys. So I would say that we can start with creating clients. So let's say that we should add client, or we should add and get client. Okay, and what do we need? We need to have create, as shown previously, we need to have create client request, typos. So new create client. We need to have the client request. It is the same. What we need here: name, email, status. Okay, so let's just do client one, email, and some status. Doesn't matter for now. And we have our test HTTP client, so let's use it. We have request method here. This is request builder, and there's no magic, guys. Underneath the hood, we just use the Java HTTP client, but I created this API to make it easier. So path and relative path, because on the base we have localhost and random port that our application started on, and we need to make post to clients, if I remember correctly. Yeah, clients, and just request body. So clients, then we do post body, create client request, and we execute. And here we have create client response. The create client response, let's just test, assert that we have the right status code, guys. So create client response, status code. Let's check that it's equal to 201, which means created. It should work. Okay, it worked. That's quite nice. We can also see the SQL statements. So we created the client and we got 201 response, and also you can see insert client statement because I set up the logs for our integration profile to show that. So let's also check, guys, that we can get this new client. So what we have is we need to take client ID from the response, because as you might remember, we have create client response with one field that's returned after the client is created. So let's do create client response, body as JSON, create or update client request. Let's just take not request, but create client response class ID. Let's do get client response, just HTTP client request. Path is similar, also client path slash and ID and get, and also execute. And we have get client response. So let's assume that it was 200. Okay. Status code is equal to 200. And also we expect, let's create expected client that we should have returned from this request. And it basically would be create client request to client and this client ID. And what it does, guys, it is this method is taking create or update client request and taking and mapping it to client that is returned by the get request, and the client that we created, it should be that. As our request has defined with client ID that was randomly assigned. So let's do get client response and body as JSON client class. But I don't have. That guy is equal to expected client. Let's run it, and I need some power, guys. Okay, it worked. So we have added and got client, guys. So that's quite nice. We tested 2 endpoints, and what is interesting, we can do, as we have in README, we can do Maven clean package test report. And we run the tests. I mean, one test. It's not that long, actually, guys, as for end-to-end slash integration test. And here to load that, inside we should have a report, and inside you can do nice thing like that. And we have some not that bad coverage actually already, but let's go further, guys. So what I would like to do is to refactor it a little. So we'll reuse these two guys. So I would say that we should do we should have two methods like create client like that, and let's copy that. Request, and also the get client by ID, let's say. So let's go with this ID. Let's see the get client ID, create client. And also, as you can remember, I had some assertions here. So let's use them. We can use enums from Spring here. Not created, not okay, but created. And it's just wrapper around the same code that we had previously, but we don't need less lines. So let's use them. Assert response status, and let's say okay here, and we also have nice thing, a nice method like assert response body, and these two lines we can turn it to 1. Let's make sure that it works, guys. All right, it works. So one more thing, I would move our request here. So let's do create or update, because we need more than one. So let's do something like that. Create an update client request 1. We have more. And we have one place for our data here. Okay, guys, so we can add and get clients. So next test could be something like that. We should not get non-existent client, for example. So let's say client ID, or even non-existent client ID. Let's say response get client, and here let's assert response status not found, and body actually error response, and we have from exception new client not found exception with this ID. And what's the source of that, guys? We have a client service. We are throwing this exception here. This is here. So let's run all tests again, guys, to make sure that it still works. It works. All right. So I would like to test that validation works, guys. So for it's almost the same with create and update. with update we have additional step that might exist. But basically we take request and we turn it to client, and we have validation in the client constructor. So we have required ID that we have always, but we have name needs to be not blank and have certain length, and email need to be not blank, have certain length, and be according to this regex. Okay, so we have a few cases in general. So what I would like to do is to create parameterized tests and have here things like invalid client names. Let it be empty for now, and here invalid client emails, and let it also be empty for now. And let's go here, guys, and let's create parameterized tests. Maybe here. So parameters test and a method source that we don't have it yet. Let's name it invalid create or update requests, for example. Should not allow to create invalid client, something like that. Request, and let's have that method. So IDE is not screaming at us. Let's copy that. We have here stream empty for now. We go to that later in a while. And here, guys, we just need to make request. So create client request, and actually prepared a method to assert error response. So we need to have expected error class, status, and response, because we'll see that response status is of certain value as we had previously, and we also parse error response, but we only care about error. I don't want to test message here. Okay, so it basically would be something like that. Assert error response. We have response. It will be bad request in that case always, and client validation exception class. Why? Let me show you. We throw it here, but with different message. We don't care about that in this test, and we handle it here, so it will be bad request. That's all we want to test, guys, on that level of detail. So right now we just need to create a few cases. So we have empty still invalid client names and emails, but in general I would like to do something like that. Invalid name requests, and we can take the invalid client names. We can flat map them, so we have or just map them, sorry, just map them, I believe, because we have invalid name here, invalid name, and new creator update current request, valid name, here some email, we don't care, should be valid, and also some status. We don't care about exact value here. And let's do the same, guys, for emails. So invalid email requests. We have emails, invalid email. So here we need to have some valid name. I know, some client. Doesn't matter. Invalid email matters. And for the sake of example, something different. Okay, and other invalid requests, let's say. And here we can have things like, I don't know, all null values, for example, or valid name, valid email, but null status. I don't believe we have this, so we have a few streams, and now we can do stream of invalid name request, invalid email request, other invalid requests, and do flat map. So we turn streams of streams to one stream, basically. All right, so let's right now we only need to have invalid client names cases, basically. So this would be null, I guess. Empty, something like that. Then what we need to have, guys, I guess, one to short name and one to long. So let's take something like random. We have random string method prepared for me here. So let's do client minimum name length, minimum, maximum, and -1. So it is too short, and let's also do max name length +1, a little bit too long. And with email, let's copy these cases. We also have similarly to that, but email, and let's create a few invalid emails. So for example, this is not valid, just a few. I don't know, this is also not valid. We don't need to have all of them, but just a few. We also have some requirements for this length. So let's do Gmail too long extension, and also some I don't know, invalid characters there, something like that. And guys, we should have a lot of cases actually here, because parameterized tests, a few streams. Let's see. All right, it works. We have 16 cases, guys. Okay, so we can create and get client. We also have validation working. So let's do an update. So the simplest case would be that we should not update non-existent client, right? So similar to that, let's create update client method. Let's do create update request, and here we do put body request. So it actually will be the same, but update client, almost the same. Test objects, let's do that. Let's run it, guys. Yeah, it works. Alright, so before updating client, we should have the same validation should work for an update, almost the same. So should not allow to update invalid client. One difference would be that we need to client need to exist. So let's name it update request, and here let's create client. So we don't care about its value, we just need to have a client, but here we need to update the client and we need ID. So let's maybe create a method like that. So create client returning ID, and here we just call create client request body as JSON, not that, but response guys ID. Okay, create client returning ID. Right, client ID. Alright, it should work. So we have the same cases for validation that we had with creating the client, but we need to create it first. So let's check it out. Here we test that it did, we get 404. If it doesn't exist, yeah, it works. Let's run them actually, guys, together to see that we don't have any state related issues. But we shouldn't. Yes, we shouldn't. 35 tests passed. Alright, so I think we can update a client. Maybe we need to have another client, let's say. So let's do something simple to see that we can update all fields. So should update client, I would say something really simple. So I think we can also use that. So, but maybe let's create some variables. So create client request. It will be that. Update client request. It will be another one. Create client request. We have client ID. And update response, let's say, and let's update client request. Let's just assert that we have 200 and search response status, I believe, because I believe we don't return anything here. So here I would say updated or expected client after update, for example, the client. So we expect the client to be have values from update client request, which is the second one, not the first one. And let's just say that search response body update response, something like that. Maybe let's move it here, or not here. Yeah, here. So let's run it, guys. Oh, but it is running. Doesn't work. What happened, guys? Yeah, not update response. Yeah, because update response is empty. Yeah. Here we should do get client. You can do this here. Let's run it. So we are getting the client from get client endpoint after updating it. Yeah, it works. Yeah, so it's almost all, guys. Let's maybe test one case that we have in the SQL repo is that we validate that email is taken, right? So to do that, let's write one other test case. Should not allow to update client with taken email. Yeah, so what we need to have, guys, certainly that, I think also that we need to have the clients. So let's do something like that. Client 1 ID, create client returning ID. We have two clients and they have name and email, and let's say that we will try to update second client with the email of the first client. So let's do create client request or not, update client request to update client request or update client to request to client 1 email. Okay. Yeah, and we can do something like that. Update client to response, I think. Yeah, update client to request to client 1 email. Just for the sake of readability, really. The name, and update client 2 update yes, and assert error response client validation exception, I believe. Also got request. Let's run it. Yeah, it worked. And one last thing, let's run it in the console with the coverage report. Obviously, coverage is just a tool because we can have high coverage and not really tested all of our cases. So you need to take it with a grain of salt, but nevertheless, let's see our coverage. Yeah, nice. Almost all, guys. We have tested it almost all, having only one integration / end-to-end tests. We started our process also in the test runner. We didn't need to use any external tools, just Java, Spring Boot, and related libraries, guys. So that's quite nice. So I hope you liked the video. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, stay tuned, stay awesome, and see you in the next one. See ya.